Alright, today we're talking about I did it again. Doesn't look good. Non-chord tones. Okay? So, just to review, non-chord tones are our tones that are not non in our chord. Okay? So, remember, always review your spellings here. Let's just say, quick example. We got a G major 7. That's spelled as G, B, D, F sharp. So, some of our non-chord tones might be A, right? G, A, B. Then we got C, D, E right up in here. And G on the top is another chord tone. You've just filled out your G major scale. Now, we also have chromatic non-chord tones, but we're not going to talk about those for right now. Let's just get a grasp on our regular non-chord tones. So, let's see here. Let's check out our example here. We have, if you think back to our guide tones, we got right here, this C is the third of A minor 7 in our first bar. And then the C again is the seventh of our D7 in our second bar. Then we're just going to take a small half step down motion to get to the third of our G major in the third bar. And then we're going to stay on that B to get the seventh of C major 7. Now, these are really awesome guide tones. As you can see, that we're keeping as little movement as possible here. So let's talk about embellishing this, putting some non-chord tones in here. The last thing we talked about was the passing tone. Now, when we have common tones, like this C goes to C and then this B goes to B, you can't pass between those two because they're on the same plane, right? So there's no way to pass to it. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to use a neighbor tone to kind of embellish your line here. So what a neighbor tone is imagine, I don't know why I went back to this page, but imagine you kind of live on a hill. All right, you can live on a hill this way. Well, let's draw the hill like this. Okay, so this is you. This is you. Okay, and so a neighbor tone, you live here. Your neighbor lives right here. Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Neighbor tone is a tone that lives right next to you. Okay, now you can have a lower neighbor or you can have an upper neighbor. Okay, so let's say you lived on this side, just so you can kind of see a little better, like the way that we read music, sort of, right? Would be, this is you, and this is your upper neighbor. All right, upper neighbor. Let's just label that so I don't have to write so much stuff. Upper neighbor tone. Okay. Not sure what I just did. We back. Okay. So this is you again, over here, and this guy down here would be. I don't know why your arms are so long in that one. Sorry about that. You kind of, maybe you're bending down, pick something up. So this would be you guessed it, lower neighbor tone. All right. This one's your upper neighbor tone because he's living up the hill from you. This one's your lower neighbor tone because he's living down the hill from you. Alright? So if we go back here, let's say you are that C. You are the minor third of the A minor chord. Super cool. Now, your upper neighbor, right? Your upper neighbor would be D. Right? D is a non-chord tone in A minor 7. Let's just fix this rhythm here. Now, there you go, neighbor tone. So the neighbor tone, it's always going to, you're going to start on a chord tone, you're going to move away to a non-chord tone, but then you're going to come home. Alright, so you are that C, you're going to your neighbor's house, D, that's your upper neighbor, and then you're going to come back down to C. And the reason why is because you don't want to overstay your welcome at your neighbor's place. So if you go to your neighbor's house for dinner, you got to come back home. All right, that's it. You don't want to overstay your welcome. That's just rude. Okay. So the other way that we could do this, I'll show you in the bottom here, is that, let's say now you're this B, so you're the major third here, and we want to make it to be over here. So what we're going to do is let's just go with a lower neighbor. A lower neighbor tone, we'll put you on A. And there you have it. That is your lower neighbor. So we typically use these when there are common tones between our guide tones, right? Or guide. It doesn't exactly have to be guide tones. It could be, it could be between two chord tones. Like, for instance, if we have this here, and let's say you play G here, we're staying G here, right? Let's get an upper neighbor this time. So you got an A here. There's your upper neighbor. Boom. 9-chord tone, upper neighbor. All right. So this could be useful inside one bar as well, where you don't always have to think about chord tones going, common tones going across, even though it's a really good thing to be thinking about your common tones. As an improviser that's frequently on the bandstand, I realize that a lot of people neglect their common tones and their long tones. It's really cool to just bust out a long tone in the middle of your solo. Your solo doesn't always have to be really busy, so always keep your common tones in mind. But anyway, let's get back to it. So you don't have to be thinking common tones between two chords to utilize a neighbor. Alright, so let's say that this is you right here. You're on the third again. Okay. And we want to use a neighbor tone. So maybe we're just going to go... Oh, let me use a different color for that. Maybe you're just going to play a D in there. Right? So there you have it. Maybe this is a triplet inside your measure, or maybe let's not do triplet for now. So maybe you got this. There's your upper neighbor, okay. And now let's maybe do a little chordal skip down to the root. I don't know why I did that in purple. Let's do a little chordal skip down to the root, okay. And let's use a neighbor tone here. Let's use the upper neighbor again, because that's cool, that's hip. This is a little sequence we got going here, right? So this is just the start of a sequence that you could have, right? Utilizing the guide tone, going to upper neighbor and back down, and then chordal skipping down and doing the same thing again here, right? And maybe you could even complete the sequence. You move down a third there, a minor third, right? C to A, right here. This right here. That jump was C to A, minor third. Well, guess what? You could go down here. Let's make another minor third connection right there. Complete this sequence. Sequences we might talk about a little later. But so now here's another minor third jump. You're going to that F sharp here, and then let's keep going with the sequence here. Let's use another upper neighbor, right? And what's important with building sequences is that we're using the same rhythm as well. All right, the rhythm is important when building a sequence, right? And then just because you were using all minor thirds doesn't mean you have to continue to use minor thirds, right? You're using thirds. So let's just finish this guy out for fun. We're using that's a D, and then our upper neighbor would be the E here, and then we're gonna go back to D, because you always need to return to your you always need to return back home after you go to your neighbor's house, right? Because you don't want to overstay your welcome. And right here, there's another third connection right there. So this is a third, and this is just so you can see the sequence happening. This is a pretty cool line actually. So this is a sequence using our upper neighbor, right? So there's one way that you could get a little busy through the line, but not just busy like randomly, right? Yeah, so keep in mind using your neighbor tones like that, and you could do the same thing over here if you'd like to. I mean, not the exact same thing. you could utilize your lower neighbor, say. So let's just say we wanted to go from B, right, to B again. Oh, I'm touching somewhere else. Sorry. B, you got to come back home, right? And then you can use a lower neighbor here for, let's say, oops, let's say something like that. Okay, so there's a lower neighbor line, and play around with the rhythm. Could be pretty cool. Remember, it's all about exploring, and I'm just trying to give you some options here. All right. So the next part of the neighbor tone that I want to talk about is that you could do what a lot of us call neighbor group. All right. So what a neighbor group might be is that you're going from one friend's house, right? And I don't want to say excuse, but maybe as an excuse, you're saying to them, maybe they're talking too much, and you're like, "Hey, man, I told so and so, my lower neighbor over there, that I was going to go to their place before we headed back home tonight. So we're going to get out of here. Thank you for dinner, but we're going to go head over and we're going to have coffee with our lower neighbor." All right, so this is getting cheesy as heck. All right, so here are you right here on your third. You're the third, and let's say you're going to go to your upper neighbor's house. Okay, here's your upper neighbor here, and then you're going to go run over to your lower neighbor's house. But then after all that, you're tired. You had a long day after that. Okay, so you got to go back home, right? So this is what we call a neighbor group. This is where you are. Here, I'll circle these. You are here. This is your chord tone, CT. This is your upper neighbor tone, right here. This guy. Your lower neighbor tone is over here, and you're back to home, CT. And this CT over here, it's important that this CT, this chord tone right here, is the same as your first chord tone over here. Very important, okay? Because you have to establish where your home is. So this is home, you're going to your upper neighbor, you're going to your lower neighbor, you're coming back home. And you could do it in the opposite way as well. You could go to your, let's just swap this around real quick. There's definitely a better way to do that. Sorry. Let's say we're doing that. Let's write in our upper neighbor tone. And now let's just switch these arrows around. So you can see the swap here is like that. Okay, so you were at home, you went to your lower neighbor first, then you went to your upper neighbors, then you came back home. Alright, so this is called a neighbor group. And it's pretty useful, right? It kind of like delays where the chord tone's going to go again by putting two non-chord tones in between, right? So yeah, I think this is going to do it for neighbor tones. Keep playing, keep experimenting, and we'll be back with more non-chord tones. Alright, peace.